the 51st G7 summit, hosted by Canada, the very country Donald Trump would still like to make the 51st state. Awkward. So how does Canada emerge with a win, and what would that even look like?
What is a successful summit then?
Typically, or this year?
What a good question.
One word keeps coming up about this summit, unpredictable. And you know what, or rather who, that's all about. Donald Trump. And shocker, a mid-summit curveball, Trump deciding to leave the summit at the end of day one. So much for the meetings planned for Tuesday. At this point then, the definition of success looks very different.
The bar is low, but it's still possible to trip over it.
Quick reminder here, the G7, or Group of Seven, was created in 1975. And in the beginning, it was a G6. France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US.
It was created around the time of the first oil crisis to have conversations around how to manage this global instability around the economy.
Canada was invited to join the next year, and the G7 was born. The host nation rotates among members, and that country sets the agenda for the meeting.
The point of the G7 is really to get the world's leading democratic countries together around the table at one time so they can talk about some of the most politically significant challenges facing them, as well as some of the most challenging economic issues as well.
Normally what's happening, it's recession, it's the oil shock, it's international economic factors from the outside.
And that's where this year is especially tricky. Many of the problems seem to be coming from inside the G7. These summits are short. Usually the objective is a single document, a communique, with a language all the leaders can agree on.
That was Charlevoix.
Ella Kakotsis with the University of Toronto's G7 research group has been studying those communiques since 1994.
From 75 until 2018, there was a certain level of predictability to these events. The leaders would come, they would agree, there would be a document issued. And I think it was so repetitive for, general audiences that there wasn't perhaps a lot of attention on these events until something dramatic happens. And something dramatic did happen in Charlevoix.
Charlevoix, Quebec, 2018. The last time Donald Trump was in Canada. He left that G7 early too, skipping the sessions on climate change, but not before giving his agreement to the communique. Can you tell from this now famous photo that this was not an easy process? Still, mission accomplished if you're then Prime Minister and host Justin Trudeau.
And I'm happy to announce that we've released a joint communique by all 7 countries.
But then, on board Air Force One, Trump watched Trudeau's closing news conference. And when Trudeau made some comments related to tariffs,
Canadians were polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around.
I think that Justin probably didn't know that Air Force One has about 20 televisions.
The Air Force One tweet storm was unleashed. Trump ordered his team to withdraw U.S. support from that finalized communique, a G7 nightmare. And remember that photo? John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, was there by his side.
Well, nice to see you, Ambassador.
Thanks for having me.
By the way, he is now a Trump critic.
If you can help us understand what it was about Prime Minister Trudeau's actions that set him off.
Well, he's incredibly thin-skinned, and he doesn't like it when people say things that he can't respond to. He took the weapon that was at hand, which was to withdraw from the communique, and blamed it on Trudeau.
We know that the leaders will want to talk about economic instability, but I'm curious how they do that when some of them can draw a direct line between that instability and Donald Trump and the tariffs.
I think people will be very worried that if they say something that Trump doesn't like, that whatever prospects for a deal they had might be lost right there.
And for Prime Minister Carney, a win and a loss?
So a loss would be coming into this and then going out in a worse situation on the tariffs than he came in. I think for Carney and really for most of the others, a win is just getting through it and not having anything change.
So how's it going? Well, in roughly 24 hours, Carney seems to have a promise of a trade deal within 30 days. So that's something. But the U.S. president also arrived with some predictable talking points, taking mere minutes to bring up Russia.
They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it.
Tiny history lesson coming at you again. Russia was invited to join the G7 in 1998, creating the G8. But Putin's invasion of Crimea saw him ousted from the group in 2014, an ousting Trump has criticized repeatedly.
I'd love to have him back. I think it was a mistake to throw him out. If it was the G8, if Russia were in it, I think you probably wouldn't have this ridiculous, deadly war going on right now.
That war Russia started with Ukraine expected to feature heavily on the agenda here. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is one of the invited guests who was counting on a face-to-face meeting with the U.S. president. That won't happen, but maybe there is something else he can go home with.
If you're Zelensky, you're hoping that, in fact, that you can get the G7 to give very strong indications of support. You're hoping that you're able to cut deals in terms of the continuance of the supply of weapons and ammunition that they need to maintain this fight.
And if all of that doesn't sound tough enough, also on the G7 agenda, AI, energy security, critical minerals, trade. Hard to find any of that doesn't revolve around Donald Trump.
The last thing they want is for the American president to feel like he's being ganged up against, because, there's nothing really to stop him from just getting up and leaving, and actually things ending up in a worse position. And so this is an opportunity ripe for diplomacy, for quiet, considered, slow, careful, meticulous diplomacy to move the ball in a positive direction.
Well, he did just that, get up and leave, that is, but maintains it's about the Middle East, not because he's angry or feeling isolated. And a reminder from John Bolton, do not ever underestimate the power of how Trump feels he's being treated.
Trump sees international relations as being the equivalent of the personal relations that he has with other heads of state. It's a gross oversimplification, but that's how he sees it. So a lot does ride on how all the leaders interact.
And after the chaos of Charlevoix, Prime Minister Mark Carney isn't even risking the trouble of a joint communique, isn't planning on issuing one, moving that low bar even lower.